Hey everybody, unfortunately here this morning to share some tough news that occurred over the weekend in Colorado Springs. For those of you who have not heard, there was a shooting this weekend at Club Q, which is an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs. By a lot of folks, this was described as the only safe place in the area for LGBTQ people to gather. In a bit, we're going to get into some of the voices and hate that are kind of coming out that are fueling this sort of violence going on in different places across the country. But first, let's take a look at an account from someone who was there firsthand. Colin, we can play that first clip.
As I was dancing on the dance floor, I heard shots fired. I thought it was the music because there were no screams, there was no help, help, nothing like that. Then there were more shots. When I realized what was going on, I ran to the dressing room immediately. There was a customer that followed me, and there was a drag performer, Delusional, who was in the dressing room. I made them lock the doors, and we got down on the ground and cut off the lights immediately. We heard everything. We heard more shots fired. We heard the assailant being beat up by someone that I assumed that tackled him. We heard the police come in. We heard them yelling at him. We heard them saying check certain people because they're critical. We heard everything, and all I can think about is everything. My life. Just everything. Friends, family, loved ones. I came here to celebrate my birthday. Honestly, I was supposed to be in Denver, but I came back a day early, and it's sad.
Joshua, what does this mean for the LGBTQ community here in Colorado Springs, this shooting?
It's hard to say. It means so much because this is our only safe space here in the Springs. And so for this to get shot up, what are we going to do now? Where are we going to go? Yeah, we can rebuild and come together but what about those people that lost their lives for no reason? Like the other 18 that were injured. I could have been one of them. It means a lot because, again, what are we going to do now? How are we going to feel safe in our city?
This was your safe space?
Yeah, this was the only LGBTQIA plus space in the entire city of Colorado Springs. It's won awards in Independent Magazine. I got my start here. So many of my friends I met here and people that I call loved ones, and now it's shattered.
I mean, what an absolutely horrific situation. Fortunately, it seems like there were some brave patrons inside who actually fought the gunman down, took his gun from him, and had him pinned to the floor. And when the police arrived, they held him in that position until the police could arrest him. So fortunately, again, there was several folks died. Lots of folks are still in critical condition in the hospital, which we'll get into shortly. But fortunately, there were a couple brave folks who, put their life at risk to save everybody else who was present at Club Q that night. I can't even imagine what this community is going through. As a gay man myself, I know that especially in a lot of these smaller cities and towns across the country, the community is small. There's an everybody knows everybody type mentality around. So when something like this happens in a city that's not very big, Colorado Springs is not a massive place. I'm sure everybody in that community knows somebody who was at least there. A lot of folks were likely present. So I really can't even begin to imagine what this must be like for the folks in Colorado Springs. But let's get in here to a couple of the details from CNN, and then we'll talk a bit more about this. So from the CNN article, Colin, we've got, here's what we know about the deadly Colorado Springs mass shooting. A deadly mass shooting has rocked the community of Colorado Springs, Colorado, where police say a 22-year-old gunman entered an LGBTQ nightclub and opened fire. Here's what we know. At least 5 people were killed and 25 others were wounded in a shooting at a venue called Club Q in Colorado Springs late Saturday, according to police. Authorities received numerous 911 calls just before midnight local time and arrived at the club within minutes, said Colorado Springs Police Lieutenant Pamela Castro. Authorities said the suspected shooter, identified as 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich, is in custody and received medical treatment after his arrest. Weapons used: the suspect used a long rifle in the shooting, according to officials, but there were multiple guns found on scene. They are still sorting through the ownership of each weapon. A heroic confrontation. Law enforcement officials praised the heroism of one or more people who fought back and subdued the shooter. The city's mayor said one of the customers took a handgun from the gunman and hit him with it. It's too early to determine whether or not this shooting was a hate crime. We'll get into this in a second. Colorado Springs police said, but the department will consider that possibility going forward. Whether this was a hate crime or it is part of the investigation, Police Chief Adrian Vasquez said. There is a lot of work to be done, added Michael Allen, a local district attorney. And then lastly, several victims from the shooting are in critical condition, local hospital officials told reporters on Sunday. The victims' names are not being released until the families are notified. The Colorado Springs mayor said 19 of the 25 people hurt in the attack suffered gunshot wounds, and that he remains hopeful all will survive. Unable to determine if it was a hate crime. I don't know. To me, picking the only LGBTQ plus club in the entire town and opening fire on the crowd of people inside seems like it was pretty much fueled by hate to me. I can't think of another reason why you would maybe walk into the only gay club in town and just start shooting, hitting almost 30 people, killing 5, lots of folks still in the hospital. Oh, we're still determining if it's a hate crime. I mean, I'm confident they're going to get there, but what else do you need to know that this is a hate crime? Also, this guy clearly had a record and was somehow out free. We can pull up the press release here, Colin, but he essentially had a bomb threat against his own mother, which closed several blocks of a street, SWAT team, and all of that. We can pull up that press release. Sheriff's Office response to bomb threat in Lorson Ranch neighborhood. We don't need to read the whole thing here, but the reporting party said her son was threatening to cause harm to her with a homemade bomb, multiple weapons, and ammunition. The reporting party was not in the home at the time when she made the call and was not sure where her son was. You know, just running around with a bomb and a bunch of guns, threatening to use them. And this was only on June 18th, 2021. About a year and a half ago. And somehow this guy is just out and about with more guns and free. I don't know how you end up threatening folks with a bomb and then ending up being able to get out and be free, let alone buy weapons. We'll see how he got the weapons. That is ultimately not known yet, but we'll keep you updated there. The real question here, though, to me, is who is fueling all of this hate? Over the last several weeks, months, even year, we've had a lot more anti-LGBTQ plus sentiment being built up, mostly from the right at this point. All of it from the right at this point. Who am I kidding? A lot of it recently has been on the attack on drag shows. We've seen protests at drag shows. We've seen all sorts of ridiculous things. This one is interesting to me for sure. The vast majority of drag shows going on are happening at venues that are 18, most of them 21 plus. They're in bars, and it is adults over those ages making the choice to go to these places. So for the party that's very much individual rights and freedoms, that one surprises me a little bit. You'd think that they would want individuals to make their own choices and go and do the things that they want to do, but it sounds like they want to limit what folks can do, maybe limit the free speech of the drag performers who want to do their performances. Seems a little bit backwards to me. I'm sure you all agree with me. That one seems a little bit bizarre. And then in the case of these drag queen story hours and more family-friendly drag shows, I can tell you that these are, in all cases, less sexual than probably the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders that are performing every Sunday, broadcast across the United States on everybody's TV, and no one says that that is over-sexualizing and putting things in front of our children. But instead, folks putting on a family-oriented show reading books dressed up, that's terrible. We can't have that. No fun. But cheerleaders wearing basically nothing, broadcast all across the country, that's totally fine. That's not over-sexualizing and pushing sex into our kids' lives too early, right? Makes a whole lot of fucking sense. The other ridiculous thing when it comes to this, especially with the, drag queen story hours or the more family-oriented drag shows, the other big thing that the right is pushing these days is parental rights. Parents should have the rights to know what their kids are doing, and parental rights, that means that those parents going to those places are full-on actively choosing to take their children there. If you're not their parents, Get out of there. You have no say over what another person's child is learning. If someone wants to introduce their children and take them to a drag queen story hour, they have every right to do so. So putting this under the guise of parents' rights is also ridiculous and contradicts everything that they're saying. But again, this is nothing new. The right is contradicting itself on all sorts of things these days. But this is just another thing that it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you don't want to go to a drag show, no one is forcing you to. No one's forcing you to take your children there. So just don't go. All these folks are going out and protesting outside of them while there's like little kids going in. You're horrifying these children. Number one, they're going to have a story read to them. It's beyond me. The other major thing going on with this, and this happened a lot in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill going through, was calling folks groomers, and that these queer teachers in schools are grooming your children. Again, as a gay person myself, if I had one gay teacher who was just a role model and I was just like, oh, I know that he's gay because he said he went kayaking with his husband this weekend, or he has a picture of his husband on his desk. Having a positive role model who is successful and happy to some kid sitting at their desk thinking that what they're feeling is wrong is only going to be helpful. It literally, you don't even need to share anything else beyond that. It's just knowing that, hey, like, there are positive gay, lesbian, transgender, whatever it may be, role models out there for kids to see that while they're growing up and be like, whoa, okay, I can live this life and be successful and happy, would be huge. I didn't come out for years because I felt like I didn't have that in my life. I didn't see those types of folks out there nearly as much as we do today. And that's why we're seeing more kids feel comfortable verbalizing these things, because unlike when I was in school and the F slur and gay being a derogatory term being used like literally every day, that is happening to a lesser and lesser degree every single year. So kids are feeling comfortable actually saying something rather than hiding who they actually are for years and years and years. So trying to legislate away gay people and trans people and lesbian people and queer people in general, anyone who falls under the umbrella, is just, it's, number one, it's not going to work. And number two, you're literally hurting children. You're making children feel terrible about themselves. You're leading to more queer kids committing suicide, more queer folks turning to drugs and all sorts of terrible things by trying to legislate them away. It's not going to happen. One other point that I wanted to make on schools as well is having the gay or the lesbian teacher in the school as a role model for kids who may be feeling that way is one end of it, but it's also positive for kids who are straight in that class to be like, oh, okay, my teacher's gay and he's absolutely normal, or she's absolutely normal and is leading a perfectly happy life. These are not people that I need to be worried about. I've heard weird things about this in the past, but it's like, no, they're regular people who deserve to be treated with dignity just like everybody else and respect just like everybody else. And for them to see that, it's like, okay, this isn't something I need to be worried about. And when they're a kid, they see that and they move on, and it's just like, why is that? You know what I mean? It just immediately, okay, that's fine. Like, kids get over these things a lot easier than adults do. So to introduce that to folks in the right way at a young age makes a whole lot of sense. Shielding children from queer people like it's some sort of bad thing. Like, it's like you're shielding them from like murder and crime. Like, what there's nothing wrong with having a different sexual orientation. It is not a crime. There's nothing bad about it. There's roughly 10% of people or so are queer in some way. So you're going to try to shield them from it like it's some sort of crime? Like, no. Like, you don't need to introduce them to everything. Just like we don't introduce kids to everything about straight relationships, right? We don't tell 5-year-olds about straight people having sex, just like we're not going to tell 5-year-olds about gay people having sex, right? We're just going to introduce the fact that, hey, sometimes a man marries a man and sometimes a woman marries a woman, and sometimes, someone might have been born as a woman, but really they were meant to be a man, and that happens. And like, you can explain it in a basic term like that to a child, without doing anything crazy. No one wants to get into anything beyond that. The right is just painting this as some sort of, I don't even know, some sort of mad plan to sexualize your children. That's not happening, obviously. I don't know, you see all of these sorts of things happening, again, with all the stuff in Florida, across the country, the protests at the drag queen story hours, all of this sort of stuff. And then we wonder why something like what happened on Saturday night in Colorado Springs happens. I mean, to me, it's unfortunately pretty clear, but we'll see if we can, make some headway here. We are going to see, hopefully, some votes on the protection of same-sex marriage in the Senate soon. To any senators who are voting no on this because, they think it's going to be protected by, Obergefell has no chance of being overturned. Like, I mean, let's be real here. There is a chance of it, and if you vote no on it, I'm going to see that, and I'm sure most of the LGBTQ plus community is going to see that as you voting against them, not against, it's fine. Obergefell's not going to be overturned, just like Roe versus Wade wasn't going to be overturned, right? Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Again, I can't imagine to think about what happened. My heart goes out to the victims and the victims' families in Colorado Springs. What a tragic turn of events. Definitely, if anything else happens with this, we'll be on it. Stay tuned for our live stream every day. Make sure you're subscribed, and we will talk to you all soon.